This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net. It is Tuesday afternoon, and it is time for what?
That's my cue. Or is it my cue?
Yes. What in the world?
What in the world? What in the world with me, Paul Seaburn? Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining our podcast. This week, it's Tuesday, the 28th of September. Yep. Beautiful day in Rexville, Ohio, northeast Ohio, near Cleveland. That's where we're broadcasting from. Some of us have our allergies acting up, as you may have heard John down there. I just had a drink of water here. We're all suffering from the various stuff that's floating in the air, but we don't care. It's a beautiful fall day in the Cleveland area, and we're glad you're joining us for the absolute strangest, funnest show podcast on the internet. You're joining us, hopefully on YouTube or on newclevelandradio.net, our platform, which is hosted by Karen Hale, who is also our producer and our co-host. Hi, Karen.
Hello.
And then as part of our show, we have What in the World of Sports with my old friend and color commentator, John DiNallo. Hi, John.
Hey, John.
Hi, everybody.
Before the show, we were talking a little bit about Cleveland sports news and the fact that as of today, I guess we can no longer refer to the Indians as the Indians. They are now the Guardians. So that's an interesting topic that we're not going to talk about because it's not fun and strange. That's our motto. Real news, sometimes strange, always funny. That's what we have here at What in the World. The stories are all true. I've picked the internet for the weird news, the paranormal news, stuff that I think you will enjoy and that the three of us will have fun talking about, because that's the goal. If we have fun, we think you'll have fun too. And I've got some great stories for us this week, Karen and John. Giraffes fighting in South Africa. Who knew? John, wait till you hear the new training for astronauts in France. We need to move to France. This is going to be good. Chupacabras in New Mexico, Karen.
Chupacabras.
It's Karen's favorite cryptid, weird animal. The chupacabras are blocking traffic in New Mexico, so we're going to hear about that. They must be protesting something. We're going to learn a little bit about the game of life. The inventor of the game of life passed away this week. Talk a little bit about him. Jane Goodall, the chimpanzee lady, she weighed in this week on Bigfoot. So we're going to find out what she has to say about Bigfoot. If anybody knows about Bigfoot, she should. Aliens. I got all kind of alien stories. Sammy Hagar, John, one of your rock and roll favorites, I'm sure. He claims that he's been abducted by aliens. So,
oh my gosh. Never
knew.
Yeah.
Don't worry, he's safe. He's safe, John.
Good to hear.
Yeah. And genies. I hope we get to this story. But we don't run out of time. There's a place called the Well of Hell in Yemen that has genies living in it, and yet some crazy people decided they were going to rappel down to the bottom of it and see if they could find the genie. So we'll find out about them. And also, if we get to it, in Liverpool, a serial killer doll, a rag doll, a raggedy Ann type doll. Yeah, that's an alleged serial killer. So let's get right to it with it. Oh, and then of course at the end we'll have What in the World of Sports with John. We got another weird sport for you, and Bluff the co-host, everybody's favorite weird news game. So let's get right to it. With we were looking at this picture before the show. Neither John nor Karen could figure out what it was. So let's see if I can bring it up here while we're talking about it. Now this story is about a hamster, cute little hamster. I've got his picture up here. By the way, thank you to everybody who's listening to the podcast on iTunes or whatever your platform might be. We are also on YouTube, and I have a few photographs that I like to put up. The best way to see those is to join us on YouTube. You can pull it up later when we
and it's free.
Uploads it. Yeah, and it's free. It's free. Everything is free at What in the World. So anyways, this cute little guy, his name is Mr. Gox. Mr. Gox lives in Germany. He's a hamster who is not a stock picker, but a crypto trading hamster. Now, I'm not going to try to explain to you what crypto is. I have a hard time understanding it myself, which is very embarrassing because this hamster does. He knows all
Wow.
about it. Yeah, Karen, he has stunned the investment world by making more money trading in cryptocurrency and whatever else he trades in, more money than Bitcoin, the Standard and Poor's 500, and Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway mutual fund. He's made so much money, he was able to buy himself a Peloton hamster wheel. That's how much money he's making.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, but quite a bit. So that's him. I don't know how he picks the article didn't get into. I guess they didn't want any other hamsters learning his secrets. So
Sure.
it didn't really get into how he picks his stocks. But whatever it is, he's doing really well. But I wanted to mention the hamster wheel. I've never had a hamster, but anyone who has a hamster, apparently it's mandatory that you have a hamster wheel to exercise the little guys because otherwise I don't know what they'll do. They'll chew their way out of the cage or something. Did you know the hamster wheel is a fairly recent invention? It was invented in 1949. So before that, I don't know how hamsters exercise, but this guy right here, I'll bring his picture up here while I talk about him. His name is Kevin Woolfolk, and he lives in a really weird named city, Normal, Illinois. Normal, Illinois. He is the inventor, and I have a picture of that up here, of the hamster workout wheel. Now, Mr. Woolfolk is also a hamster owner. His hamster's name is Bert. In fact, that's Bert's picture right there. But Bert was running on this hamster wheel all night long, as hamsters apparently do. And it was driving Kevin crazy. He's also an inventor. So he decided to put this craziness to work. And he said, gee, I wonder how far Bert runs every night. So he rigged up, let's see if I can get this straight. He went to the hardware store. He got a small magnetic counter and a magnet and stuck it to the wheel somehow. And then that night, as Bert ran, the little counter went up every time he went a foot. The next morning, any idea, either one of you, how far a hamster can run in one night?
Oh boy.
God, no idea.
Never thought about that, did you?
No.
He ran, and this is without one of those little watches on his arm. He ran 23,300 feet. I'll do the math for you. That's 4.5 miles.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
He
4.5
didn't
miles.
sleep.
He didn't sleep at all. Like apparently, neither did poor Kevin over here. He ought to grease it up at least. But so now he sells them. He patented the hamster. What does he call it? The hamster exercise wheel, workout wheel. And he's selling them online. So to check it out if you've got a hamster. The only thing he can't do, he hasn't been able to train his hamster to wipe down the wheel after he's done using it. So
Yeah,
other
probably.
hamsters, it's
Yeah.
disgusting. It's like all those bodybuilders at the gym. It's gone to Bert's head that he can run 4.5 miles. So, he said, if I can run 4.5 miles, you can wipe it down.
That's right.
Yeah. So now, I don't know about the two of you or those of you listening in, but it's as attractive as space travel looks. I've never had a hankering to do it because there's way too much training that's involved. Even we talked about this last week, the Inspiration 4 crew that went up on the SpaceX capsule for 3 days. They were in training for like 9 months in order to prepare for it. So even though they were private citizens, they were still pretty well trained. Well, guess what? And this is for us, John. We're going to France because France has the kind of training for astronauts that we can handle. And this comes from Toulouse, one of my favorite city names, Toulouse, France. I don't know where it's at, but they're recruiting female astronauts. So they have 20 female astronauts that are competing to become a French astronaut. And this is what they're training in. That is a waterproof. Let's see, it's a device to simulate weightlessness. So it's filled with water and covered with plastic, and they're going to lay in that for 5 days while people stand around them and watch them.
Oh, wow.
It's a waterbed. That's what he did. It's basically a waterbed, which costs probably 50 times more than a normal waterbed because it's for space. And that it's called dry immersion, a dry immersion study. And the men have already done it. So now the women are doing it. I've got a picture of one of the guys here. Just to show you how much fun this is.
Oh my
Look,
gosh.
they even bring him food. It's like being in the hospital. He's got a little tray on his lap, and while he's floating on his waterbed, they bring him food. And it's not even freeze-dried ice cream. It looks like a real meal. So this is for us, John. This is how we're going to get into shape for going into space.
This doesn't even look like fun.
No, and then you can just see what happens. So they're in the middle of their training, and all of a sudden you're going to hear one of them say, "Houston, we have a leak."
Yeah. Yep.
But just to show you how easy it is to go into space now, Captain Kirk, the original, the one, the only William Shatner, is going into space on the next SpaceX mission. No, on Jeff Bezos, on Blue Origin. He will be on the next Blue Origin mission. 90 years old he is. 90 years old. He will be the oldest person to travel into near space. He's not going into orbit. He goes up till you can see the curvature of the Earth and then go back down 60 some miles. So he's going to be, he gets the right, because he's 90 years old, he gets the right to look out the window and say, "Hey, you kids, get off my planet."
One of the few people that can do that, right? Sure.
There you go. That's right. And but they've already run into problems because he keeps calling Bezos up every day saying, "Beam me up, Jeffy. Beam me up, Jeffy." Not going to happen. He's going to get tired of that. And then the worst thing is they're trying to pick the rest of the crew. So Shatner, because he's Captain Kirk, he's let it go to his head. So he wants to pick out the uniforms. He wants to have new uniforms for the crew befitting of his stature as Captain Kirk. And he's picked some special ones out for the women, of course. And I think I have a picture of one of them right here. There you go.
Of course, yes.
That's the green alien from the pilot episode of Star Trek, who Captain Kirk fell in love with. So that's what they have to do. In order to fly with him, they have to wear green makeup and exceedingly short uniforms.
Yes.
And no shoes, apparently.
Yeah.
She's barefoot.
Right.
I think that, he probably doesn't want anybody to know this, but he's probably going to take a little stuffed Tribble up with him and just curl up in the corner, like in a fetal position. Until it's all over rubbing his Tribble, if you know what I mean. So anyway, speaking of celebrities in space, this is the I referred to this before. Sammy Hagar, the Red Rocker. Are you a Sammy? I joked with John before about being a Sammy Hagar fan. I don't really know. Are you a Sammy Hagar fan?
I wouldn't say I'm a fan. I mean, his music is all right. I mean,
Red Rocker, they call it.
Yeah, when he was with Van Halen, he had quite a few hit records actually.
Who was he with before Van Halen? Let's see how big of a fan you might be.
Oh,
How about you, Karen?
No idea.
Not a chance.
Nope, not a chance.
He was in a band with Ronnie Montrose. There's your hint. Ronnie Montrose was the lead guitarist, and Sammy Hagar was the vocalist. That's Ronnie Montrose. What was the name of the band?
Okay, John.
It's Montrose. Montrose is the name of the band.
Yes. Okay.
Hey, kids at home, this is what we do every week.
Yeah.
So yeah, Eddie Van Halen was a Montrose fan, and he had gone to see Montrose many years before he lost David Lee Roth to Ego, and so he went to at that time Sammy Hagar was no longer with Montrose, and he invited him to be the lead singer for Van Halen, and they had 4 hit records. I didn't realize this. They had 4 hit records with Sammy Hagar before he got all upset, or somebody got upset, and they parted ways. And David Lee Roth came back, and then they made up. And they performed together at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when they were inducted. This is rock star egos. So, so why on earth would aliens want to abduct Sammy Hagar? You may ask.
Yeah, why?
Good question,
I'm
Karen.
wondering that myself.
He says because he's like a lab rat. They wanted to inspect them. So this is one of those weird celebrity alien abduction stories. He says he was asleep 4 o'clock in the morning in the 1960s. Okay, so there were probably substances involved in this.
I'm sure.
Yeah, pitch black, dead asleep. I felt like I was being programmed by someone tapping into me, like there was a string in my head connected to 13 miles away in a mountain. Okay, I don't know how he's got a good imagination, I can say that. And he said he was 19. It was in 1964 and 1965, and the aliens communicated with him telepathically, and they said he could hear them say telepathically, "Oh, he's waking up." And he said they tried to program him, but they couldn't. Which, a failed experiment, I guess. So they dumped him out back into his bed and went away. But he mentions in this new interview, now he has said this before, in the new interview, he says that they came back for him later, and he saw them in a log cabin. Now, and this is another one of those stories, rock stars are used to being pampered and having their brown M&Ms picked out of the bowl so they don't eat brown M&Ms, and which is a Van Halen story, if I'm not mistaken. So here he is. He claims he's in a log cabin with no Wi-Fi, no computers, no phones, no lights, no electricity, and that's when the aliens show up.
Of course.
When he's out there. Yeah. So there's no witnesses. He can't call anybody and say, here, to the alien, talk to this guy. Talk to Paul in Cleveland. He wants to know. He's going to put us on What in the World. So that's what he says. He says the aliens came and visited him again, scared him to death, probably because he had no electricity, couldn't see what they look like. So I don't know. Sammy Hagar, the Red Rocker, he says the experience was like taking LSD. So that's going to tell you something right there. But it had such an impact on him that he says he started hiding messages in his songs after he was the second encounter. So he said Space Station Number 5, a Montrose song, was after his encounter. Another one was called Space Age Sacrifice. Silver Lights was another one. So he's working his alien encounter into his music. But is Sammy Hagar the right rock star to represent humanity to visiting extraterrestrials? Think about that. Who would you rather have meet extraterrestrials? John, you're a rock aficionado. Who do you think should represent us?
Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce, there's a good choice. I like
Interesting.
that. Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Yeah.
But David Bowie's not with us anymore. I think he would have been my choice. But I think the person the rocker who would most easily communicate with aliens based on what they look like in the movies is Keith Richards.
Yeah.
He looks like E.T. 80 years after E.T. riding the bicycle. All right, so we're talking about relics, the William Shatner and Sammy Hagar. Here's another relic, telephone booths. Now, we all grew up with a telephone booth pretty much on every corner, wouldn't you say, John and Karen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
It didn't take much effort to find a telephone booth where for 10 cents before they raised the price, you could call anywhere in the city and have a conversation or make dinner reservations, whatever you needed to do. how many? So if you think at that time there was one on every street corner, how many do you think there are today? How many telephone booths are there in the United States today?
Maybe 1,000.
1,000. Well, that's low. That's low.
That's
John, add some zeros to that.
I want to say,
Let's see. Yeah,
I'm gonna
3
say,
zeros. No, 2 zeros.
I'll say 15,000.
15,000, 100,000 across the United States.
really.
Really?
Yeah,
That
but they're
many?
not all coin operated phone booths. If you go to one in New York City, some of them are Wi-Fi hotspots. So
Oh.
you can't so you can't, there's no place to put your quarter, but you can make a call for free because it's a Wi-Fi hotspot. I'm not sure how
Ah.
that works. Yeah. But anyway, so it's very tough to find a phone booth. I happened to find one. This story comes from Iowa, Dubuque, Iowa. And here's the phone. Oh, there's Sammy Hagar right there. There we go. Okay. So here's the phone booth. Now, if you notice,
Telepoem.
telepoem. That's right, Karen. It's not a telephone booth. It's a telepoem booth. This was near in downtown Dubuque, between East 10th and East 11th Street. There's a little underpath, and inside there's, I think, is a local poet bought a phone booth and changed it to a telepoem booth. You go in there, it doesn't cost you anything. You pick up the phone and you dial any number, and a poet will read a poem to you. Now that's kind of nice. That's pretty cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Now I can remember, and not that I did this myself, kids listening at home, but if you go into a phone booth, often you would find numbers written on the wall that would be preceded by, for a good time, call. And sure enough, there's a number just like that in this phone booth. So if you should happen to go into this phone booth and see for a good time call and you dial the number, what you will get is a poet who will read you a poem about a guy from Nantucket. Yeah. Everybody, I'm not gonna. We can't tell that because the censors would get us.
Right, exactly.
How Alexander Graham Bell invented the phone, and I don't remember what year he did. The phone booth was not long after that. The original phone booth was in January of 1881 in Germany, in Potsdamer Platz. I've been to Potsdamer Platz, a major plaza and train station in Berlin. But instead of putting a coin in, you went to like the train station and you bought a paper ticket. And somehow you inserted the paper ticket into the phone, and then you were able to make your phone call. Until William Gray in Connecticut, I believe, invented the coin payphone in the United States, and the rest is history. 1989 or 1889. Yeah. So 100,000 payphones remaining in the United States.
Interesting.
Pretty sad. Yeah, I think so. Okay, so let's pick things up a little bit, although we're going to be talking about somebody who just passed away, but at the ripe old age of 99. Reuben Clammer, I believe is how he pronounced his name, the inventor of the game of life. We've all played the game of life.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most famous board games in history. He invented it in 1960. At least that's what the articles all said, that the obituaries that were in the paper last week. One thing they didn't say, what he knew, he's 99 years old. He knew his time was almost up because he was making a last modification to the game of life so that he could have a get out of purgatory free card. Because he knew he was going to need something. But although they said that Reuben Clammer invented a game in 1960, it actually dates back to the original guy, Milton Bradley. The company is named after a gentleman who was a game inventor. In 1860, and I have a picture of that board right here. Oh, there's the original game of life right there in the box. We'll talk a little bit about the pieces in a second here. So this is the original game of life, which looks more like a checkerboard. And Milton Bradley invented it. It was called the checkered game of life. Probably more realistic. We all have checkered lives. You moved around like on a checkerboard, And there were things like crime, happiness. I'm reading here, Cupid, I guess, for romance. So the object was to land on the good spaces and collect 100 points. Each space had points to it. You could get 50 points automatically by reaching happy old age, which is in the upper right-hand corner of this picture here. And infancy, down at the lower left-hand corner, is where you began. And they didn't use dice. I thought this was interesting because dice were associated with gambling. So they had a multi-sided, a six-sided cube called a thing called a teetotum. It was a top. You spun it rather than rolling it. Now, so the modern version, which we were looking at over there, I think I have the board over here. There you go. There's the board. So it's not checkers, but it's little paths going around a little town, I guess you would call it, and a spinner in the middle, so you didn't have the dice. And the cards, you remember the cards, Karen? The piece that you moved around in? It was a little flat piece of plastic with 6 holes in it, and you got a peg, and each peg represented a person. So when you started the game, there's one on the bottom, a little white card. So you picked out your peg and you put it in, and that's what you were the driver. and just to show you that this is a 1960 game, the pegs were colored blue or pink, depending on your gender. Yeah. So you rode around, you spun your thing, you got married, you acquired property. You picked up kids, so every time you had a kid, you got another peg for your little car. The thing that amazed me, though, I was more of a Monopoly fan, and we all remember using money in Monopoly. Right. I don't remember requiring money in the game of life, but believe it or not, you could do pretty well in the game of life here. There's some of the money there. The bills went up to $100,000.
Wow.
$100,000 bill. And then not just one, there's a whole stack of $100,000 bills here. What's amazing to me, I don't know what you bought with $100,000 in 1960 when this game was invented, but the United States currency also had bills going up to $100,000. In fact, I think at one time there was a $500,000 bill. Who carries a $500,000 bill, John? I know it's not you.
It's definitely not me. And aren't they just, weren't those bills just transferred from bank to bank? You know,
that could be. You're probably right about that. I'll go with that. That makes sense.
Sure.
So I don't know what you spent $100,000 on in the game of life. A trophy wife, that's what you bought. Property, there you go.
Yeah, sure.
So I wish I had a photograph of this next story. Let's see, do I have anything else to say about that? I don't think so. Okay, we can take that picture down here. So I wanted to mention, we're going to talk a little bit about animals. This story comes from South Africa. I didn't know this, and I've been to the zoo many times. Apparently, giraffes are very violent creatures, and they like to fight each other. Now, I've never seen, have you ever seen giraffes fighting at the zoo?
I haven't.
No, I never have. No, I never have.
No, or on, one of the nature shows, it's always bulls or buffalo or, big cats chasing down gazelles, never two giraffes. But apparently giraffes fight each other, but they have rules. This is the amazing thing. These wildlife experts in South Africa were watching these giraffes, and they found out that they have rules for when they fight. For one thing, it's only the males, and they only fight other males that are the same size as them. So they don't pick on little giraffes. They don't try to pick, be a big shot and pick on the bigger ones. It's always a fight between two like-sized male giraffes. And to keep it fair, they bring in an older giraffe to be a referee. And if things get out of hand, the older giraffe interferes with them and kind of pushes them apart. And he's got stripes, obviously. Oh, no, wait, giraffes don't have stripes.
No.
A zebra would be better. But they use this old giraffe, and so giraffes play fair, and they only pick on people their own size. This is why giraffes are terrible at basketball, because when you're 15 feet tall or 16 feet tall, you're supposed to dunk on the shorter giraffe. That's just the way it goes.
Oh,
Anyway, so now here comes a chupacabra story. I wanted to lead into an animal story before we got with an animal story. So before we got to Karen's favorite monster, the
Chupacabra.
chupacabra. That's right, the blood sucking goat sucker of Puerto Rico and Central and South America and the state of Texas. It's in the news in New Mexico of all places. So the you know how you listen, you're sitting in traffic, you're stuck in traffic, you turn on the radio to get the traffic report. And one day last week in New Mexico on New Mexico State Highway 16, people stuck in traffic heard this. The chopper's flying over and he says, for those of you on Route 16, traffic is being blocked by a chupacabra. Yes,
They're
Karen.
not that big.
How can that be, you ask? How can it be? It turns out it was a twist. The Netflix is filming a movie about chupacabras called Chupa, of all things, and they had permission from the local town. I'm not sure what I guess I don't have the name of the town near Route 16 to block the freeway while they were shooting. And it's a story about it's a wonderful story about a little boy who goes to visit his grandfather on the farm and finds out that his grandfather has this little animal friend in the woods that he calls with his music box. And when he plays the music box, this little creature comes out and he plays with him, not knowing that it's a blood-sucking chupacabra. So I'm not sure how the ending is going to be. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But what kind of music, Karen, big chupacabra fan, what do you think a chupacabra likes to listen to?
Oh my gosh. It's gotta be hard rock of some sort.
Oh, hard rock. Yeah, I would think
Yeah.
that. John, you're welcome to jump in with any ideas.
I would say hard rock also. I think that would
Hard
be
rock. Okay.
be a logical.
How about what kind of music would a bloodsucker listen to? Something specific.
Mm.
Alice Cooper was my suggestion. Alice,
Or Kiss.
the
Yeah.
bat head biting guy.
Yeah.
That's who if I was a chupacabra, that's who I'd listen to. School's out for some. No, maybe not that song. Anyways, so okay, so let's get to Jane Goodall. That's we're going to stay on the animal trend here for a second. I don't have any pictures of Jane. I think she's been around for so long. She started in 1960 was when she went to Africa and first got involved in studying chimpanzees. Now she moved on to saving them, to protecting their environment, and she's moved in since on to climate change. And the effect that climate change has on all primates, whether they're chimps or gorillas or human beings, climate change is affecting all of us the same way. So she was giving an article recently on her new program, which is called Trees for Jane. Trees for Jane, I think that's the name of it. We'll go with that until I find it. Trees for Jane. And basically she wants to plant a trillion trees, I think it is, all over Africa and around the world to replace the trees that have been cut down and give chimpanzees and monkeys and other primates a place to live, get rid of the carbon dioxide, all that good stuff. Wonderful, wonderful person that Jane is. But she's also a primatologist. So what better person to ask about Bigfoot than a primatologist? So this interviewee for GQ ran out of things to ask her. So she says, what do you think about Bigfoot? So Jane Goodall says this. She says she wouldn't say when it was. She was being very careful, but she was flying in Ecuador. And she said she was in a little plane, flew for 2 solid hours over unbroken forest. So she's flying a long way, seeing absolutely nothing, till she finally lands in a small village of 30 to 50 people. And they have no contact with the outside world other than hunters who pass through. So she had a translator, and she asked the people who live there, did the hunters ever talk about, what did she say, a monkey without a tail? Because there's no chimpanzees in South America, only monkeys with tails. So she says, did they ever see a monkey without a tail? And sure enough, the chief comes over and he says, oh yeah, 3 different hunters have said to him, oh yes, we've seen monkeys without tail. They walk upright and they're 6 feet tall.
Wow.
Yeah. In Ecuador.
Wow.
Yeah. Upright tailless 6 foot tall monkey. So Jane Goodall is intrigued. So she starts asking more villagers, and wherever she goes, she asks people, have you seen a monkey without a tail? And she says, on every continent except for Antarctica, there have been stories of monkeys without a tail, basically Bigfoot. In 2018, she gave an interview, and she said, so I don't know if it's a myth that stems from maybe the last of the Neanderthals, but is this the last of the Neanderthals living in the forest? Now, I did some reading. I've written about Neanderthals before, and many scientists believe that the Neanderthals, most of them think they died off around 40, 50,000 years ago. But they believe they have found evidence that some lasted until only 12,000 years ago, like in Spain on the Iberian Peninsula and possibly in Siberia. So, and they mated with humans and with Denisovans and some of the other archaic humans, as they're called. I know so much about this. You learn all kinds of stuff. Every once in a while, I throw out one of those words that makes people think, "Oh boy, he really studies this stuff." Archaic humans. So she believes that it's entirely possible that there were Neanderthals 12,000 years ago, when perhaps the Native Americans met with them, and that's where some of their stories came from about the Sasquatch in North America. So here's what she says. So they try to pin her down. Yes or no? Bigfoot or no Bigfoot? What do you think she said? Place your bets now. Karen says she said yes. How about you, John?
Yeah, I'm going to say that she said yes also.
Said yes. Okay, good bet. All right. She says, I don't know, but I'm not going to say it doesn't exist, and I'm not going to say people who believe in it are stupid. So I'd say that's a maybe with trending towards yes. So I would give you guys, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt there.
Good.
And she's right. She's right. I have no explanation. Everybody who asks me about Bigfoot, I always say, show me the evidence. And there is no evidence, but there is, at least to my satisfaction. But as Jane Goodall points out, what do you say to the hundreds and thousands of people who swear that they've seen something, or they've heard about something, or they've heard the noise, or they found the evidence? It's awfully hard to say you're stupid. And I'm not going to call Jane Goodall stupid.
No.
So,
Right.
I'm going to say, Jane, keep looking. Please call me up. What in the world? www. We will put you on the show. We'll bump John. We'll bump.
Hey, wait a minute.
Yeah,
wait a
bump
second,
me.
wait a second.
We'll skip sports for the week.
I want equal time.
Okay. Well, then the next show we'll devote to you, John. It'll be all yours.
Okay.
So, anyways, upright 6 foot tall, tailless monkey. Go figure. Okay, so I tried to find a picture of this doll, and I couldn't get a good one. But this story comes from Liverpool, I believe. So if John, and Karen, if you're doing some remodeling in your home and you tear down a wall and you find something strange in the wall, what do you do? Do you grab it and look at it? Do you run out the door screaming? I guess it depends on the thing. So let me identify the thing. I've already told you what it is. It's a doll. It's a rag doll. Look kind of like Raggedy Ann. And this guy finds this doll in his wall, and it's holding a note. Okay. So
Okay.
this sounds like a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, it does.
So, yeah. So what does he do? He reads the note. And the note, here's what the note says. Dear reader, new home owner, thank you for freeing me. My name is Emily. My original owners lived in this house in 1961. I didn't like them, so they had to go. All they did was sing and be merry. It was sickening. Stabbing was my choice of death for them. So I hope you have knives. Hope you sleep well. No signature. Okay, so he finds this doll in his house. This is in Liverpool. Jonathan Lewis is his name. So he immediately posted on Facebook, calls up the Liverpool Echo, the local paper, has them come out. They took photographs of it. I might have just patched it up. I might have just stuck it back in there and said, if she's going to kill me, she's got to at least get through the drywall first. So those are your choices. Do you patch it back up and forget about it? Do you run screaming out of the house? You read the note. Do you follow? Do you believe it? So what does he do? He goes around to the neighbors and he says, do you remember anybody dying in this house? And I found this note. This is the way you meet the neighbor. I found this doll in my wall with a note that said she killed everybody. Do you think she did? And most of the people said no. They said it must be a prank. But he did a little more research. He called the realtor, and the realtor said the house wasn't built in 1961. It's a newer house. So he says he thinks that it was the previous owners trying to pull a prank on him. Except, what if it wasn't? What if the doll was found someplace else and it killed the resident of another house, and then they brought it and they buried it in this house, and hoping that the possessed doll would kill this guy. Did he check for any other murders? Did he, because the doll, we've talked about The Conjuring and Annabelle, those movies, those were rag dolls that look like Raggedy Ann, same kind of doll. It could be that maybe the doll it at least gave him bad dreams. I don't know.
Yes.
But it sounded so close to a Twilight Zone episode. I really loved that. So, anyways, all right. So I picked on John. I would never bump John and What in the World of Sports off the show. So What in the World of Sports fans,
good to hear.
don't worry. Don't worry. You just have to hang in there until we get through the stories, and then we bring on John with What in the World of Sports. And as always, I asked John to find something unusual in the world of sport, something that possibly the two of us or the three of us could participate in. And I believe the story he has this week is one that we could all play, Karen.
Wow.
So, yeah. Whether we want to or not is another story. So
okay.
let's find out what our sport for the week is this week, John. Go take it away.
Okay, thanks.
I'm going to bring up my pictures here. So
Okay,
go ahead.
So we have a very unusual sport this week. Listen closely. The title of this sport, or the name of the sport, if you will, is black pudding throwing.
Black pudding.
Black pudding. Now,
Yeah.
each year on the second Sunday of September, a steam train brings a small painted block known as the Golden Grid to the train station at the English town of Ramsbottom in Greater Manchester. Bagpipes then escort the grid to the Oaks pub, where it is placed on the ground. And then from this hallowed point, brave contestants will hurl black puddings underhand at servings of Yorkshire pudding.
Now, I want to stop John for a second there. For those of you who are not familiar with English cuisine, I have a picture up here. The first picture was what black pudding really does look like. Black pudding we've talked about black pudding on the show before. It's made, and brace yourself, Karen, it's made from either cow's or pig's blood mixed with oats or some other grain and and seasoning, lots of spices stuffed into a casing. It's basically a sausage, and every culture has sausage. You might think of it as another version of haggis or another version of boudin or kishka as we have in Cleveland. So that's your sausage. Sometimes it looks a little better than that. I have a picture of some that's frying up in a pan. It looks more like the kind of sausage.
Or like a traditional sausage, right? That
Or
we're
like a traditional sausage, yeah. A Yorkshire pudding. I have also had Yorkshire pudding from my dear friend Tex Chick and her English husband. Yorkshire pudding is a kind of a pastry fried pastry kind of thing with a hole in the middle of it, and you can put other food into the hole. That's not what this John Sport is using it for, but sometimes you make them bigger. And this is a big Yorkshire pudding right here that you can put a roast in. And as a matter of fact, I have had one of the dishes that you serve in this is, I want to make sure I get this correctly. This is called toad in the hole. And what that is, you bake the Yorkshire pudding and then you put sausage in there, cooked sausage, and you bake that together, and all the juices all mixed together, and it is wonderful, absolutely wonderful dish. Unfortunately, we're not talking about eating it, John. We're talking about throwing it, if I remember correctly.
That's exactly the sport, Paul. It is throwing it. Now, anyone can compete in the World Black Pudding Throwing Championship. To participate, all you have to pay is £1 English pound, and in return,
okay,
yeah, £1. And in return, you receive 3 black puddings that are, interestingly enough, wrapped up in women's tights to prevent them from falling apart. Now, this is tradition, okay? This is the ammunition that you use in the competition. The target in the competition is 12 servings of Yorkshire pudding placed on top of a 20-foot high scaffold, which you can see there. The contestant that knocks down the greatest number of puddings is declared the winner. Now,
we can do that.
Yes, we can all participate in this. All 3 of us. Now,
we got to figure out how much a pound is. We have to figure that part out. Other than that, and how we're going to get to England. But other than that,
yeah.
Now, the championship takes place in the street outside the Oaks Pub with hundreds of attendees, as you can see there. Some come to compete, and many more come to watch the contestants, watch the competition, but then also eat and drink themselves. While the modern version, while the modern version of the event dates back to the 1980s, locals will tell you that the origins of the game took place long before that.
Oh, really?
According to legend, the event stems from the War of the Roses, which was a series of English civil wars that took place in the 15th century.
15th century, okay.
Right.
Wow.
So this war was fought between the House of Lancaster, represented by the Red Rose, and the House of York, represented by the White Rose. So during a battle in Stubbins, Lancashire, in 1455, soldiers on both sides apparently ran out of ammunition, or so the story goes. They then resorted to throwing food at each other, with each side hurling its local food specialty: black pudding from Lancashire and Yorkshire pudding from Yorkshire.
Oh my God.
Now the troops, they must have been very well supplied with food and woefully unprepared when it came to actual weaponry. Even if all of the soldiers involved were arrowless bowmen, you would think that their daggers, which most bowmen carried, would have been more effective than black pudding or rocks or branches or pretty much anything that the blood sausage or traditional pudding would have. But either way, it makes for a good story and even better competition.
Maybe the other side was afraid of touching blood pudding, and they recoiled in horror as a must have been a sock. It must have been an old stinky sock that the soldiers had that they wrapped the pudding in and threw it like a slingshot at them. And somebody gets hit with the black pudding. It's, oh my God, black pudding, and they all run in the opposite direction. There's a war story you telling at the local VFW hall.
That would be.
Remember when the British threw black pudding at us?
And for the competition, to the competition, I should say, the participants stand on a golden grid block in the town center, and they are given 3 attempts to knock down as many Yorkshire puddings from the top of the scaffold, with the black puddings. The contestants hurl the black puddings underhand, and that is a very specific rule. You can only throw the black pudding underhand. You can't throw it over your sidearm, right? So, okay. So previous competitions have been won by contestants from as far away as Turkey and Australia. Due to the pandemic, last year's contest was canceled. But in this year's competition, a black pudding thrower became a two-time winner. Andrew Ferrier from Wolverhampton, England, was crowned champion. After winning this year's contest, Mr. Ferrier donned a Yorkshire Pudding crown and was presented with a silver trophy.
I looked everywhere for the crown. I couldn't find a picture of it. I'm guessing it looks like a Yorkshire pudding. He probably just put a Yorkshire pudding on his head, which
Had to be a relatively big one, though.
yeah, but there you go. That's right. That's right.
Now, it's difficult to find black pudding in Cleveland.
That's true.
We have plenty of Polish kielbasa and women's tights to wrap them in. I think it's time for the World Kielbasa Throwing Championship in Cleveland. Now, that's one world championship I know that our town can win.
You better believe it. What is that? The World Kielbasa Throwing Championship.
Yes,
I think we can do that. We wouldn't be the first though, because I was looking for pictures of. Oh, here's a guy throwing underhand over here in front of the Oaks.
Okay, sure.
Even little kids.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, little kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see, Karen, the little bag of black pudding.
Yeah, I can see it.
If you got any old tights, save them, because I think we're going to use them for this.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, or some of those yoga things, yoga pants. You got any of those?
Oh, I got plenty. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I was looking for examples of throwing kielbasa, and you would not believe this, John, but there's a hockey team called the Dauphin Kings, and in Nova Scotia, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
And I forget which hockey team throws octopus on the ice. It for the Dauphin Kings during the game, they throw kielbasa. And in fact, it looks like they're trying to win a washing machine here.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to hit the washing machine with kielbasa, and whoever gets the closest wins. Now, I've already found the person who will win our first world kielbasa throwing championship, and you'll recognize him when you see that picture. That, my friends, is the Kielbasa Kid, and everyone in Cleveland knows who the Kielbasa Kid is. That is Big Chuck Shadowski.
Yes.
Originally from the Goulardi show, where he would ride an actual horse with, instead of a gun, a kielbasa, a smoked kielbasa, hanging out of his holster, and they would perform some absolutely absurd and very funny skit. Little bit of trivia for you. When I was in high school, I worked at a place called Eddie's Delicatessen, and Big Chuck Shadowski lived down the street from our deli, where we used to make Polish kielbasa. And he would come in and he would buy his smoked kielbasa there. So that's my 6 degrees of separation from the Kielbasa Kid.
a noted Cleveland celebrity.
There you go. So blood sausage tossing world championship. John, every week you find another one. Thank you so much for that one.
You're welcome.
I think we will. We're going to do this kielbasa. Somehow we're going to do a kielbasa throwing championship.
Oh, sure. Why not?
Yeah, why not? That's right. We got nothing better to do.
Huh.
Okay, so we'll get Kielbasa Kid out of the way here, and now it's time for our own What in the World of Sports. Bluff the co-host. Dun, 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 play the music. Every week.
John's been winning.
John has been winning, and we haven't figured out what's going on here. I don't know if he hacked my computer, but anyways, every week I have 3 stories similar to the ones that we've been talking about all afternoon, with an added twist for Bluff the co-host. Some of them may be real, some may be a bluff. It's up to Karen and John to determine which is real, which is a bluff. You can also play at home. You can wager at home, whatever you'd like to do. If you come up with some stories, I have actually had some listeners send me some tips on stories. If we use your story on the air, we'll give you credit. We'll send you some black pudding.
That's your prize.
There you go. There. So anyway, let's get right to it with Bluff the co-host. Hands on the buzzer, Karen and John.
Hey,
Let's see, Karen. Come on. You got to hold up your side
Yep,
of the bar.
I do.
You ready? Story number one. Wildlife experts in Colorado have been baffled recently by reports from people trout fishing who claim that the brown trouts they've been catching lately are more pale than brown. Some of the pale trout were frozen and sent to a lab, and the cause of the pale brown trout was discovered. It's the fault of the trout fishing people themselves. The lab researchers discovered the skin of the pale trout has high concentrations of titanium dioxide and zinc oxide, the main ingredient in sunblock. People fishing who wear sunblock and wash it off in the streams or sweat it off are giving the brown trout an SPF level of close to 100, full blocking, which is blocking the sun rays that gives the brown trout their bronze skin. The wildlife experts are hoping the effect will wear off over the winter, and trout fishing fans will be told when they renew their licenses next year to wear long sleeves and hat instead of using sunblock. So the brown trout in Colorado that are becoming pale due to the amount of sunblock in the streams washing off from trout fishermen. Real or bluff, Karen?
I can't believe it's real because I would believe the water would dilute the sunblock. So
Have you ever been trout fishing?
I've never been trout fishing, no.
Oh, okay.
But the water, wait a second.
But you've been in water. Okay.
Yes. Well, the water is going to dilute it to some
Good, okay.
degree.
All right.
So it's not going to have the same potency as, if it wasn't diluted. So I'm going to say it's false. I don't like, I don't think it's true.
Okay. Karen says it's a bluff. How about you, John?
I agree with Karen. I think it's a bluff.
John says it's a bluff too.
To say that that's going to like affect a fish and the
Little
picking
fish,
of it.
little
Well,
brown
still,
fish.
Paul. I mean, how much of this of those chemicals are in the water that can really affect the fish? So again, the skin color changes. I'm going to say it.
Titanium dioxide, John. Okay. All right.
I'm going to say, Karen, it's a big bluff.
John is adamant. John is adamant. John says it's a bluff. Karen says it's a bluff. Let's check with the judges. You're both right. It's a bluff.
Wow,
I'm
it's
gonna go
about
there.
time.
Very good. Very
They're
good.
naturally brown. They don't tan. Okay. All right. So the score's 1-1. Wow, this is unusual.
Yes.
Let's get right to it and see if see who comes through here. Story number 2. In a scene that looked like a cross between Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds and James Cameron's The Terminator, residents of a small town in Australia that is a testing ground for companies using intelligent drones to make home deliveries were shocked when they woke up one morning to find their roofs and treetops covered with the flying delivery drones whose cameras seemed to be watching them. The local police called the companies, who sent out their technicians to figure out what went wrong. It turns out the GPS programs in all of the drones that all of the drones were using detected a problem and shut down. And when that happens, the drones are programmed to land on the highest nearby point and wait for further instructions. Once the GPS program was fixed, the drones took off all at once like a flock of scared birds, and the techies passed out coupons for free deliveries to everyone in town. Okay, John and Karen, the town in Australia where the people woke up one morning to find their roofs and trees covered with flying drones that were supposed to be delivering packages. What do you say, real or bluff?
I'm going to say real. I'm going to say real. I'm going to think this is a true story.
Okay, John says it's true. Karen, how about you?
Well, it's all computerized, so if the computers have a glitch, true.
Ooh, oh, so you both agree that town in Australia, drones all over the place. Both of you say that's real. Let's check with the judges. You're both wrong. That's a bluff.
No, come on.
No
No.
such thing.
The whole story.
Drones can't roost in trees.
Well, they're programmed.
They have little feet that instead of wheels to
Oh,
grab onto
whatever.
the branches.
Okay.
I have seen them fishing for brown trout though.
Oh, geez, do they have
Okay,
sunglasses?
so
Did they
let's see. So the score's still tied 1-1, and
Yeah.
our regular players, no points are doubled in round number 3. So let's get right to it. Either one of you can win, either one of you can lose. Here we go. Story number 3. If your kids are too young to appreciate Halloween haunted houses, but still want to go to one, an inventor and gag gift lover in California has invented the perfect alternative. He took a standard bouncy castle, decorated it with some ghosts, and then made small holes in hidden spots in the castle where he glued noisemakers and valves from whoopee cushions. By tweaking the gag noisemakers slightly, he gave them scary sounds that honked and bleated in scary manners when a child bounced in the general area. To compensate for the leaking air, he installed a larger blower, which he decorated like a monster. The haunted bouncy castles are already a hit in Los Angeles, and a factory is cranking them out faster than the inventor can say, "Whoopee, I'm going to be rich." Okay, so the inventor in Los Angeles who invents a haunted bouncy castle that makes weird noises because he's embedded whoopee cushions and noisemakers into the bouncy structure. What do you say, Karen? Real or bluff?
If somebody hasn't done this, they should. I'm going to say real.
So you say it's
Real.
It's real. Okay. And all right. John, would you get in one? Karen?
Yeah, just never say
Yeah.
never. I think it'd be worth a try. But no.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't get to ask you, John. What do you say? Is that real or bluff?
I think it's real. I think it's real.
John? Really? Okay. And you would get in one too. I would pay to see that.
Never say never, Paul. Never say never.
I will rent one. If this is a real story, I will rent one and we'll do our next show from it. How about that?
Yeah, I like that.
Wow. It'd be different.
It would be different. Okay, let's check with the judges and see what they say. Will we be renting a haunted bouncy castle? The answer is no. That was a bluff.
No.
There's no
Oh,
such
come on. Somebody should invent it.
Yeah,
Okay,
I agree.
we'll work-
I think someone should take the steps to make that happen. Really.
Yeah.
Check the budget. Check our petty cash, Karen.
Okay, I will.
And
Yeah.
let's
I'll let
see
you know next week.
how many how many whoopee cushions we can buy.
Oh, that's disappointing. I was looking forward to it.
Well, you were also looking forward to winning, and it turns out we got
Yeah,
a tie.
well.
Yep, the worst score we could have in sports. John and Karen tied on What in the World. That means there's no losers and there's no winners. I hope you did better with listening at home. And that means that we've reached the end of another What in the World. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. And no matter how you're here, if you're listening to us on a podcast, watching us on YouTube live or sometime in the future, thanks so much. Tell your friends, like us, do all that stuff that you do on those various platforms. Visit me on Facebook. I occasionally put other stories out there. You can also read some of them at mysteriousuniverse.org. I want to thank my old friend John for another great sport, good ethnic sport.
Yeah, you're welcome, Paul.
I'm hungry now. I'm hungry for a toad in the something. I forget what it was now. Toad in the basket. And as always, to our media mogul and co-host and good friend Karen Hale, thank you for everything you do at newclevelandradio.net. Please come visit us at newclevelandradio.net and then take a look at all the great podcasts that Karen is adding to the platform every week. You will just be amazed, and you won't go anyplace else. So
Absolutely.
thanks once again for everybody there tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
We'll
Have
see
a good
you
weekend.
next.
Take
We'll
care.
see